In this video, I will tell you about taverns, hotels, and inns in Sharon, Massachusetts. Um, Jean and I pulled lots of information from different resources, and we would like to thank all volunteers who, over the years, collected and put down this information. The tavern in colonial America, or the ordinary, as it was referred to in Puritan Massachusetts, was a staple in the social, political, and travel lives of colonial citizens. As early as 1634, Samuel Cole in Boston was operating a tavern in Boston. It was not long before the demand and necessity for taverns in New England and throughout the colonies was overwhelming. In 1656, the General Court of Massachusetts held towns accountable with fines if they did not sustain an ordinary. The tavern served a multitude of purposes in colonial towns and countrysides. They were a means of direction for travelers, as well as settings where they could eat, drink, be entertained, and spend the night. The tavern was the means by which the town controlled alcohol distribution. Along with place to buy or drink spirits, colonists could play games, enjoy entertainment, participate in discussion, and receive the latest news and debate of the time. The tavern itself was rather simply designed and coordinated. The earliest taverns were mostly independent structures, yet they could also be located within or attached to residential houses. The interiors of taverns were designed with different rooms. Generally, the largest room in a tavern was the tap room with a fireplace, a bar, and simple furnishing. Midway between Boston and Providence, the land now known as Sharon was an ideal spot for travelers to stop overnight. Sharon's first ordinary was Wayman's, sometimes spelled Wayneman's, dating to the mid-1600s. Not a trace remains, but by old writings we know it was on the old post road in the area by the Cranberry Box where Shaw's Plaza now stands. Sharon's historian Solomon Talbot wrote that as Wayman's was being built, armed Native Americans came by and shot bullets into the house framing, but the colonists hit and escaped an injury. Billings Tavern came next, built by Ebenezer Billings in 1710. It was just a short distance away from where Wayman's had been, on South Main Street across from Wolomolopoak Pond. Ebenezer conducted a good business there for about 40 years. Two frequent guests, socialite Madame Knight and traveling Judge Sewell, wrote diaries which included lengthy and sometimes amusing accounts of their stay at Billings Tavern. When King Philip and his band of Native Americans devastated Medfield and the surrounding countryside in 1676, they left the tavern unmolested, probably because of the kindness of Ebenezer Billings toward all the Native Americans. There were many other taverns and inns at this time, but the next one of importance was Cobb's Tavern. This tavern is still standing in 2021. It is located on 41 Bay Road. It was built in 1730, however, another source says 1740, by Jonathan Cobb. In the early 1800s, the structure was enlarged considerably to serve more overnight guests and also to accommodate Jonathan Cobb's 10 children. Cobb's Tavern started as an inn around 1790. Cobb's Tavern was the halfway stop on the Old Bay Road that ran between Boston and Taunton Green. It was one of the last hospitable roadhouses of the olden time. Cobb's Tavern was a general favorite, particularly in its later years by bicyclists. From 1819 to 1895, Cobb's Tavern also served as the East Sharon Post Office. The mail was dropped off by stagecoach traveling the Old Bay Road and delivered by the East children as they walked to and from school. Jonathan Cobb, the owner of the tavern, was also the postmaster of Sharon. His son succeeded him in the business, which flourished for over a century, and the inn was finally closed when he died. The property is a private residence now. However, the exterior did not change much, and the owners take great care of it. The tavern hosted many interesting guests over the years, including builders of the Canton Viaduct, as well as a group of circus workers and bicyclists from the Boston Wheelers Clubs. Sharon gained a reputation as being the healthiest town east of the Rockies. The ozone count in Sharon's air was the highest anywhere, and the water was considered the purest around. This encouraged people to come here for summer vacations, and in the 1800s, a great many inns, taverns, and boarding houses were started. Here is basically an advertisement for Sharon. If you want to read the whole article, feel free to use the pause button. Sharon was a very popular summer resort, and all these inns, taverns, and hotels were in active use until sometime in the early 1900s, when, with the increase in automobile travel, many summer homes became permanent year-round homes. The hotels didn't have enough business and they were closing down. Most of the taverns and inns became private homes. Um, One of the hotels, the most famous hotel on Lake Massapoag, became community center. It is owned by town of Sharon. In some cases, a larger building had a smaller part on the side, which was an inn, and one of the perfect examples for that is Johnson's Tavern, which is on North Main Street. It was built in 1800s and eventually became private home in the late 1800s. A beautiful stone home property, which is on the corner of Ames Street and East Street, right across from the country club, was built in 1848. It is also known as H.A. Lothrop House. It was built by the operator and owner of Lothrop and Company. His factory, which manufactured knives, was on Knife Works Pond. It is an elegant home that exemplifies the best of Italian architecture with outstanding decor and design, a true estate made of granite with today's modern amenities. It was open all year round for summer and winter boarders, giving fine service. By the way, it was built from granite from Sharon Moyle's quarry, which is now part of Borderland, and we also made video. You can find it on Sharon Local History. This incredible property hosted many social occasions and later briefly served as a day school for Sharon youth. It is still an imposing and incredible building. It is well kept, and the original lot was reduced. The property has got lots of original charm, and it is private home now. The Quaker Inn, built in 1831, stood at the intersection of South Main and Depot Street. Located in the square, or the Post Office Square, just up the hill from the railroad station, short carriage ride or walk to the lake made this Quaker Inn very popular. This is an advertisement for the Quaker Inn in the Sharon Advocate. Feel free to use pause button to read the whole article. This photograph is from early 1940s. You can see Sharon's police cruiser, which often parked in front of the Quaker Inn. Since Bay Road was a favored road for traveling, there were many taverns. One of them was the Savage Tavern. It was very active around this time, but unfortunately we don't have much information about it. The Crescent Ridge Farm on the intersection of Bay Road and East Street had a boarding house, and that boarding house could accommodate up to 20 people. Here you can see advertisement. Please use pause button to pause it and read the whole article. Other boarding houses in the 1800s included the Caledonian, located on Billing Street. We don't have a picture of it, but this is a picture of Billing Street. And Mrs. Wick's boarding house on Pond Street. Again, we don't have any picture, but we have picture of Pond Street. Both of which catered to the workmen in the businesses that were on Pond and Tolman Streets. The Massapoac Lake Hotel was owned by A. Park Boys and Company. It had become a very popular site as the structure sat high on a knoll at the south end of the lake, offering fantastic view. Tragically, the building was totally destroyed by a fire in 1906. The Massapoac Lake House was one of the finest and largest hotels in Sharon. It had 100 rooms, good boarding, livery stables, tennis courts, croquet, billiards, pool, boating, bathing, bowling, hunting, and fishing. This hotel was built around 1880 and it boasted of electric bells, telephones, gas, steam heat, and good laundry, and new iron fireplaces. To read the following advertisement from Sharon Advocate, please use the pause button. Sometime in 1920s, it became Sunset Lodge. It was owned by Dubinsky family. The street is still called Dubinsky. It was destroyed by fire on New Year's Eve in 1931, but Mr. Dubinsky immediately built a second and larger Sunset Lodge. The Sunset Lodge was considered an excellent hotel, and dances, parties, and many different gatherings were held there. It was a very popular summer resort, being reached by taking the train or the trolley to the Sharon Heights station and then being met by carriage. This took one to the edge of the Lake Massapoac, where a steamer would take passengers across the lake to the hotel. In 1955, the Catholic Church bought the lodge and it became the St. Francis Retreat, which was used as such for 12 years. In 1967, it was purchased by Town of Sharon and it is serving as a community center for all residents to enjoy. At this time, there was also a hotel on the corner of what is now called Cedar Street and Beach Street. This hotel was pretty large and it was called Lakeview Hotel. It was also very popular and well known. If you walk on Beach Street, you can still see the remains of the stone wall. On the corner of East Foxborough Street and South Main Street, there was a hotel called Elm Lawn, elm like the tree. This hotel, also known as Randall's Tavern, had cottages for its guests. We are fortunate to have two photos from the interior of the Randall's Tavern. This is a fireplace and the next picture is the wood stove. This is an incredible map from 1890, which you can purchase at Sharon Historical Society. And these are the cottages that were at Elm Lawn. The Tudor Motor House was a fine place for dining. Apparently the fried chicken was sublime, drinking and dancing. On the shore of Walla Molla Pack Pond, across South Main Street from where Billings Tavern once stood, the Tudor Inn was a favorite with bicycle clubs who used to ride for the weekend, as well as those interested in the new automobiles. The property was built around 1890 and it burned in 1915. The large white house still stands beside the pond. It was turned into two condos and it's private property now. The town centre, walking distance from Sharon main railroad station, supported a large number of places for summer vacationers to stay. The Windshield House was built around 1840 and it was on Pond Street. It was considered very good inn. The Ingleside, which was on Glendale Road, accommodated 12 guests. The going price for lodging was from $6 to $12 per week. The property was owned by a well-to-do young woman who enjoyed entertaining her many friends living nearby. Just a few years after the housewarming, the newspaper noted the Ingleside was a retired home. Sadly, this was another building that burned down. The Sharon Inn on the corner of Station Street and South Main Street was very popular. It had fantastic location because it was close to center of town as well as train station and the lake. It operated from 1880 to 1920s when it was taken by eminent domain to make room for a new high school. Seven Gables Inn was another well-patronized place. It was in business from 1890 to 1910. It was located on the intersection of Gun House and East Foxborough Streets near the community gardens. It was owned and well run by members of the Hawkins and Reynolds families. Here is a short announcement from Sharon Advocate. Please use the pause button to read the whole article. The Glendale Inn was at the corner of Glendale Road and North Main Street. It is probably the best known active inn in 1900s. Its stripped awnings and beautiful property were most distinctive and welcoming. Unfortunately, at some point in 1930s, a fire destroyed most of the inn and eventually the site was developed into private homes. The Lawn Crest Inn on North Pleasant Street was one of the last of Sharon's old inns to go. It was very close to train station, fantastic location for tourist visitors coming from Boston. Sometimes in 1940s it was torn down and more modern single-family house was put up. This had been a large hotel well situated near the train station. With the establishment of the sanatorium for tubercular people around 1880s, the reputation of Sharon's clear air and pure water was enhanced more than ever. This, along with newspaper editor Mr. Wickes, constantly promoting the beauty, healthfulness, and recreational properties, was responsible for a number of these hotels, including summer hotels, being built. Among these were Singer's Inn, located on Capenhill Road, which has been the Booth Memorial home of the Salvation Army camp until recently. The Singer's Inn was directly on the lake, and here's a picture of a boathouse and people enjoying the water. Unfortunately, the Singer's Inn also caught on fire and burned down. The huge fire happened in November 1953. Eventually, the location was rebuilt. Another popular place was Hillcrest Lodge, which basically replaced the Singer's Inn. It eventually became Salvation Army's Hillcrest Lodge Conference Center, and it is still standing in 2021. The Sharon Spring House on Masa Avenue, it's on the location of Manor Lane now, was once the summer home of George and Kate Morrell. Following the death of Mr. and Mrs. Morrell, what was their private summer home became the Sharon Spring House, and later it became known as Carving Inn, Corman Inn, and finally the Green Manor. Carving Hotel was overlooking beautiful Lake Massapoag, the finest Jewish resort hotel in Massachusetts. Its stable par excellence has been known for more than 25 years throughout New England. Sadly, it was another building that was destroyed by fire in 1980. Mansion House, which was a private home for years, was bought and used by Congregational of Temple Israel on Pond Street until they were able to build their present temple. The Saville's Tavern was originally at North Main Street at the Post Office Square. However, it was moved in 1914 to 13 High Street. Another place worth mentioning is Lady Grey Tea Room. It was located on Station Street, but it was actually originally the Petty's and Colburn store that used to be in the Post Office Square, and it was moved from there to Station Street. The Lady Grey Tea Room was operated by Mrs. Hedley Matthews. It opened its door on May 30 on Memorial Day in 1923. The Bell House on North Main Street was a very large farmhouse in the late 1800s. It was called the Musquenecut Farm. It was owned and operated by Herbert F. Nelson, and it extended west to the railroad tracks. Eventually, it was renovated. You can see the large addition on the right side, and it became a popular restaurant due to its convenient location on Route 27, as well as incredible menu. It was a great place for meetings and receptions for many years. Even John F. Kennedy visited here when he ran for the first time for United States Senate. It was Temple of Sinai, a Reform synagogue that eventually moved to Ames Street location and Canton Street later, and it served as Orthodox Jewish Day School. This property serves as a Chabad center now in 2021. This large lakeshore home was on Lakeview Street. This house was also known as Boston Seashore Home for Boys during the late 1800s to early 1900s. It was owned and operated by Reverend Minor T. Deming and his wife, who brought boys from Boston, allowing the youth from the city an opportunity to enjoy camping and swimming in the country. To read the following article, just use the pause button. Many property owners in Sharon decided to rent a room or few in their houses. This is one of the examples, Spinecroft Inn, which was on Moose Hill. As you can see, Sharon was a very popular resort from late 1800s to 1940s. Most of the inns, hotels, and boarding houses were eventually sold and they became private properties.